came to the States from Chile to attend college. My first year was at Seattle Pacific College in Seattle, Washington. By the end of the year, I was sure I did not want to continue there. And some of my friends from New Jersey were going to Taylor University in Upland, Indiana, and I thought I would transfer there. My parents and Auntie Bertie dropped me off, and there I was in the middle of Indiana. I was new on campus, and I needed a job. Being fluent in Spanish, I landed a job making tapes for the language department.
This was my senior year in college, and I had a job in the language lab mounting tapes on a big tape deck for profs to make language tapes for their students. The first week of school, in walks a new, beautiful prof, and I thought, wow, she's got to be the most beautiful prof on campus. And then I found out she wasn't a prof, she was a student.
When we were sitting in the language lab talking, I noticed that Bruce had a high school ring that said Manchester Regional High School. We found out that we had both lived in Prospect Park at one time, and I knew right away that I wanted to know more about him.
I had to get a date with her, so I asked her out for pizza on Sunday night after church. In church, I was singing in the choir, and I was up in the balcony.
But you didn't tell me.
I looked down, and she walked in with another guy and sat down. She was going to church service with somebody else. And I thought, oh well, I lost this one. I thought, oh, I might as well show up at her house after church and see if she's still there for our date. And I did, and there she was, all ready to go. Didn't say anything about the other guy. So we went off for pizza, and it worked out pretty well because she laughed at all my dumb jokes, and we had a pretty good time together.
We had been seeing a lot of each other, and homecoming was coming up. He not only invited me to homecoming, but showed up with this giant chrysanthemum. He was treating me like I was someone special. From now on, we saw each other every night. We talked about what we wanted in life and how that would work out for us together. One Saturday, we went into Marion, Indiana, and looked in a jewelry shop, and he wanted me to show him what kind of engagement ring I would like. He put a deposit on it, and when we got back to campus, he asked me to marry him. I said yes. Whoops. What about my parents who were still living in Chile? We really should get their permission. I'm only 20 and a sophomore in college, living half a world away.
It was Thanksgiving, and she couldn't go home, so I decided to ask her to come to my home and meet my parents. They loved her, although my mother noticed that she had very expensive taste in clothes. Beryl reassured me that she would rather have a few good outfits than a lot of clothes. Right. She also met my friends like Don and Mare, and they were surprised that I had come home with such a beautiful girlfriend. My parents accepting her, mission accomplished. Back on campus, we still had to deal with her parents' permission. She wrote to them and said God had brought us together, we were in love, and we wanted to get engaged at Christmas. We would call, but we would make it a collect call for Reverend William Austin. If they approved of us getting engaged at Christmas, they would say, our mother would say, I'm sorry, he's not here right now. And then we would know that we had gotten their approval.
The night came when we called. My mother answered, and after the operator described the call, Mother said, I'm sorry, he is not here right now. We were so excited, but then wondered, what if he really wasn't there and they hadn't received our letter? But I was sure she would not have rejected the call for any other reason. I did get a lecture later about we had not been honest with the telephone company and we were cheating them out of their money. Anyway, we were good to go for Christmas. By this time, we were already engaged in our minds and level of commitment.
Back to my parents' home in New Jersey for Christmas. On Christmas Eve, I gave Beryl a present of her engagement ring, and we became officially engaged to be married. It was a great celebration with family and friends. Back on campus, our next big event was the Valentine's Day banquet. Our next big adventure was to Florida for spring break. My Aunt Frances and Uncle Jim had moved to Sarasota, Florida, so we volunteered to go see them for spring break. We got a ride with some friends from campus who were going to Fort Lauderdale and made the 16-hour drive to Sarasota. We got to go to the famous Jungle Garden and spent time at the beach on the Gulf. On the way home, our friends spun out on some black ice in Tennessee and the car was totaled, but none of us were hurt. I was the only one who was 21, so I was able to rent a car to get us back to campus. June came and graduation was here. My parents drove out to Taylor to pick us up and drove us back to New Jersey to make the final plans for the wedding. How complicated could this be? First was the bridal shower, for which her mother had come up early from Chile to help host. Families meeting families for the first time. The wedding was to be in Asbury Park, New Jersey on July 13, 1968. The day arrived and Dottie Bilesma, Beryl's roommate at Taylor, had come in from Chicago as the maid of honor. Dan Shar, Bruce's roommate, had come in from Ohio as best man. Beryl's cousins Linda and Phyllis were bridesmaid, along with Bruce's sister Gail. Phyllis's husband Al Lamero, Bruce's friend Chap Percival from Taylor, and Don Klingon were men of honor. The reception, a quite formal occasion, was held at the church after the service. The pinnacle of the event was the traditional cutting of the cake and gracefully feeding each other the first piece. Unfortunately, the MC announced after the cake cutting that the bride and groom would be leaving soon, and people began to leave. So with a quick change of clothes and a time for some family pictures, we were off on our honeymoon to Wildwood, New Jersey. We received a standing ovation when we arrived at the hotel. The hotel manager had let everyone know they had some honeymooners checking in. We only had what was left of the weekend for the honeymoon, and then back to work at Ancora State Hospital. I was doing an internship at the hospital, and Beryl had landed a job in the children's unit. We both needed to be back to work on Monday. Some stories start with, my grandparents lived in a log cabin. Well, this story happens to be true. My boss, Dr. Beatrice Smullins, had a garage that was literally a log cabin with an apartment upstairs. She rented it out to us for the summer. We were grateful to have a small place to call our own and not living with relatives. But we would drive up to Auntie Bertie's hotel, the Shelburne, in Ocean Grove and stay there for the weekends to be with Beryl's parents and aunt. When the summer was over, we packed up our Nash Rambler and a U-Haul trailer with everything we owned and drove out to Indiana State University in Terre Haute, where I had been accepted for my master's degree program in psychology. We arrived in town not knowing anyone or a place to stay. We found Jonesy's Trailer Park, where we bought our first home, a 10-foot wide mobile home. It was new and came fully furnished. While we were there, we got rid of the Rambler and bought a Chevy Caprice, which was a real luxury for us. In the spring, we planted our own tomato garden. We also added a new member to the family, Mr. Imp, our own monkey, who was a great source of entertainment. As summer approached, I was finishing up my master's degree and looking for a job. Our friend Marion was working at Bergen Pines County Hospital as an X-ray technician. She noticed that they were advertising for a psychologist position. So I applied, and I had one interview with the head of the hospital, and much to my surprise, I got the job. In August, our friends Don and Mara flew out to Indiana and helped us drive our car and a U-Haul truck back to New Jersey to begin the next chapter of our lives. And yes, that was a stork flying along with us on our trip back to New Jersey.